Hello, and somewhat of a welcome to another Out of Spec Bits episode. I was really having a great day. I was at the great restaurant having a bazooki dessert when I pulled out my phone and pulled up InsideEVs as I always do. Actually, our careers come from InsideEVs, both Domenick and mine. It's a great website. We're still really good friends with the whole staff over there. And then my night was ruined because I heard through an exclusive report on InsideEVs that the car that I have been really looking forward to, the super cheap Nissan LEAF, just got canceled. And I am a Nissan LEAF guy. I own 3 Nissan LEAFs. And now we come down to the one that really was going to be the Nissan LEAF for the people, well under $30,000 electric car, brand new. Canceled might be going too far, delayed indefinitely. We all know what that means. Domenick, what's going on here?
Well, so this is the Nissan LEAF. This is the rebirth of the Nissan LEAF. So it's back from, it's different from the ones that you have. It's definitely different from the limo LEAF that you have.
But this nothing can touch the coolness factor of the LEAF limo.
Right. So this is like the LEAF redone, and it's a great little package. So it's like 75 kilowatt hours of battery. It starts at a good low price. We're looking at it here, $29,990 for the S Plus starting. It gets up to $38,990. I think you've had it out of spec here already in the high spec package, and it's been pretty nice. So this is, Nissan is really a great follow up to the Aria, which they've pulled from the market as well, right? And now, so it's in the budget EV category, right? And a lot of people are really looking at prices for new cars, especially electric vehicles, and because they have this reputation for being more expensive, and deservedly. So this version of it that's being canceled, this would have brought the price down even more affordable. When you get down to these prices, a few $1,000s makes a lot of difference. Stretching from 25,000 to 30,000, that's a big ask for a lot of people. And so this would have been really nice to have as an offering for now. And it could still be here for 2027. Not ruling that out. Maybe there's so much going on, economically, and with the EV market is very dynamic times. So they could honestly be just looking at how things are going and whether or not they want to commit a lot of money to this, because Nissan is kind of strapped for cash.
Yeah, and that's been the story with Nissan being strapped for cash for years now. But I will say they really developed this Nissan LEAF to be a pretty good car. I guess just talking about what's available right now, even the current offer structure is pretty broad and pretty great. The fact that you can get a 75 kilowatt hour, well over 300 mile EV for under $30,000. This does not include the big destination fee, but for low $30,000 range is pretty impressive. And I'm glad they did that. Even more impressive though was Chevy coming out with the new Bolt with a big battery, same NAX port, liquid cooling on both cars. They're pretty comparable, and Chevy is under $30,000, including destination and delivery. Now we'll see how prices go out in the long run. But the LEAF that I just had on test spanned all the way up here to the Platinum Plus, and it was $41,000 and a bit dollars. I actually had a brand new Tesla Model Y on test at the same time, and they were with $200, within $200 to $100 of each other, which is practically the same price. So my recommendation when we're looking at the low end of the EV market is keep it basic. Like, you don't need to go crazy on these cars. And for $29,900, or I guess $31,500, this new, this base trim, which is now the base trim, the S Plus, the Plus indicating that larger 75 kilowatt hour battery pack, gets you a decent car with a ton of range. And really, there's not much you need to do to option on this thing. The one problem is you have to option the battery heater. So where is
and you should.
Yes, because
you definitely should.
Yeah,
even I don't for even resale value, it's you're gonna save that, get that much money back when you on the resale if you sell it in 5 years or 4 years.
I'm not even seeing the battery heater as an option on here, Dom.
Oh,
so maybe
they've thrown that in there.
No, because I think if
Maybe
you go
they
to
folded that in.
maybe, but no. See, it's an option on the
Oh,
top
there it
trim.
is.
There's no
Yeah.
way it's on the standard. So you can't even get preconditioning on this car. That's
Mm,
just
mm.
Nissan pulling a Nissan and screwing over their customers right there. That's annoying.
Right. I mean, if you charge at home, that's fine. If you road trip in the cold, not great.
It's just, you're going to find yourself that one cold snap having to do a run. And the fact that the car doesn't have a very basic piece of equipment, you're just going to be sitting there if it's really frozen for hours, potentially, if it's really that cold. And we've done many videos on what happens in extreme cold temperatures with EVs. That's not the point of this story. I still can't wait to get on test the base S Plus Nissan Leaf, because I think this is where it's money well spent. It's a very practical car. It's a good looking car, and it drove fine. Like it's not exciting, but it doesn't need to be. It's basic transportation. And I thought it's a huge step forward from the previous gen. The car that I was most excited for here is the smaller battery version, having 75 kilowatt hours and over 300 miles of EPA range. That's a lot of range, and way more range than most people need,
Bolt,
especially if you're on a
no
budget.
more than the Bolt, which is main competitor, I think.
Yeah, it's a lot of capacity for the money. And the S, the basic one, was supposed to be 55-ish 52 kilowatt hours.
That's reasonable. That sounds like 140-ish, you think? 135, 140?
I bet it'd be more like 200 miles.
I meant 235, 240, sorry.
Oh,
probably not quite that much. 52.
I think it'd be like 220,
This-
something like that.
Yeah. So how much do you think this was going to sticker at? So what are we losing?
Well, that's the big question. Is I don't think they ever announced pricing for this car. It was,
Right.
if the base car was $29,900, you can go with the same trim level with a small battery, maybe save $3,000 or $4,000 would be my guess, somewhere around that $26,000 range. I think this would have come in at, which would have been a absolutely doorbuster price to get a close
Right.
to $25,000 battery electric vehicle, brand new with a warranty. That's a nice, safe car to give to fleet drivers, to teenagers, to really, older folks as well. They're very simple and easy to use and easy to drive cars. That's what we need in this market. And the fact that it's not coming, I'm bummed.
I'm not sure it's a great decision. So bringing this trim would cost Nissan some money up front. It always costs money to introduce a model to a new market. There's a lot of marketing costs involved. But if they could actually produce a lot more sales with it, that's scale. As that means, you need 50,000 or 20,000 more of every part that's in that car. So that helps you save money over the long term, over the whole program, globally. And so I don't know how you come to this decision that, to cancel a car that would really be the car to get in the low, undoubtedly at like 26.5 in that neighborhood. This would be all eyes on Nissan Leaf.
Yeah, and I also,
great for the brand.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And before we go any farther, I just want to shout out my buddy Mac Hogan. We've done videos together. Mac's awesome. He's a fantastic journalist, really getting into the EV space recently. I really trust Mac. Dom knows I'm very critical of so many people in this industry. Mac is really a great guy, and I trust what he says. And so he had the exclusive story in chatting with Nissan about this. And I just want to quote the automaker because they had a chance to respond to the story. I think it's fair to also extend that to our side, which is word for word. If you're not watching, it's Nissan continually evaluates market trends, customer preferences, and the evolving EV landscape to ensure we are focusing our resources where they create the most value. As part of that process, we have decided not to introduce the smaller battery variant of the 2026 Nissan Leaf in the US this model year. The company's director of product communications for the US told Mac in an emailed statement, "We remain committed to delivering the right products at the right time, and we will continue to assess future battery configurations based on customer demand and segment needs." To me, that sounds like it's kind of a wait and see for this small battery one. My guess is the sales numbers were not gangbuster for the current Nissan Leaf, the newest generation that they just released, maybe they were like, hey, you know what? We really need to sell like a very high percentage of high trim vehicles to offset the maybe close to a loss or at least break even on the standard models. And maybe they just were not getting those Platinum Plus orders. I mean, it could be a million things. What do you think happened, Dom, to make them go this far to not introduce a car that really, I think, would have moved the needle in the marketplace?
I think you have to just look at the electric vehicle sales are not increasing like they had been for the last, however, 10, 15 years, whatever it's been. They've been slowly gaining speeds, gaining strength. And with the repeal of the federal incentive, the $7,500 federal incentive, that pulled forward a pile of demand. And so then, of course, EV sales pretty much cratered in the last quarter of 2025. And I'm not sure exactly how they're recovering now. I expect it's going to be it's going to be a lumpy recovery. So some models are going to get decent sales, like the Rivian R2. There's like incredible excitement about that vehicle. So I'm not worried about demand for that particular vehicle, but overall, it's I guess this could be seen as a measure of how much confidence Nissan has in the electric vehicle market in the US, basically.
Yeah, I mean, but it's just, I totally agree. Them pulling Aria out and now pulling this. I think they need a battery electric option. I think the Leaf is the right car at the right time. I think they messed up the offer structure a little bit. Like, for example, you can't get route planning with Google Maps unless you get the top spec. I've never seen a non-Platinum Plus new Leaf. I've got to go to my Nissan dealer and check them out. But that's always a rough day going to your local Nissan dealer. It just is like, let me get out of here. Unless you're talking about Fort Collins Nissan, then those guys are great. Not sponsored,
Right.
but they did hook up that super cheap Nissan Leaf deal last year for us, or 2 years ago.
True. They've been good to you.
Yeah, they have. And they also opened up a brand new dealer. So you don't get like a disease walking into the showroom anymore. So that's good. That was probably a bit harsh, but that's what I imagine happens every time you walk into a Nissan showroom. It's just like the 24% APR disease hits you in the finance office.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's
Right.
rough.
Finance.
Yeah, keep clear of all that.
Nissan has a reputation for being all about the finance, making their money off of financing Ultimas.
Yeah, that's right. You get that big Ultima energy walking in there. And, I really think Nissan needs a little bit more big Ultima energy. They need to send it. Bring us the cheap model. Bring us the real common people, the proper model that can actually electrify our market. We keep trying to pull people, and by we, I mean the auto industry keeps trying to pull people into more expensive and more expensive cars. It would be so refreshing to just have one cheap option. There's not one right now. I mean, the Bolt in this at $29,900, that's good, but we really need a mid $20,000 electric car option.
Right. And this would I think this is kind of a miss. I think this is a strategic mistake. I think Nissan, the 52 kilowatt hour, 26,500 whatever Nissan Leaf would pull people into the showroom. They might not sell them that car. They could upsell them to this possibly, a lot of them. And I just think it's like a bit of a mistake. I think they're missing a trick here for sure.
And I think a lot of people say, hey, look, I need a lot of range. But if you're like, as an extra car, as an only car, if you don't travel far, having 200 miles or 150 miles even, give this thing a 40 kilowatt hour pack. Like if you make it cheap enough, that range doesn't become a problem. It just becomes sort of a big golf cart at that point. And like golf carts are like 15 grand. So,
Right, they are.
Yeah. So it's like, it's really not, we're not talking like we need tons of range here. We just need some good basic offerings. And I was just going
to say, it's just a great looking package too. They really, did so many of the right things with this car. It's kind of a shame that there's a big segment of the population that won't be able to get into one at 31.5, with Destination.
Yeah, I mean, this is a standard color. This blue color looks totally acceptable on this car. It's got pretty good wheels on it. Those can't be the base wheels, can they? Is that the base wheel option?
Exterior.
That looks way too good.
Protection.
That looks, I think it is.
I think it is. Yeah.
Wow, that's a nice looking car. So you would have the same trim, small battery, big miss. I think it's a huge problem, and I really hope Nissan reconsiders this. Again, not canceled, delayed, but we all know what that means. It's not coming. That's my guess. I mean, of course, I can't speak for anyone, but I hope they hear our cries of desperation to become the leader in the EV space that they once were. Nissan used to be the innovator in the EV space, launching an affordable, very unattractive but very useful vehicle, of which I have a deep affinity for. I have two of them, of the first generation Leafs, and they're reliable. We call them the cockroaches of the EV world. They slowly degraded, especially in hot temperatures, because they didn't have good thermal management. But literally, other than that, they are unkillable. I was up at the office here in Fort Collins the other day, and I met a woman who's a kickboxing instructor. She has a unit nearby ours, and she has a 2012 Nissan Leaf that she's like, look, it's degraded a bit, but she commutes to work in it. She's like, it does all the miles I need it to do. And so maybe that's the solution here, is rather than offering a new cheap Leaf, just get a used one.
That's a 13-year-old Leaf. You can, and well, all the used EVs, there's so many great values of the deals, but especially Nissan Leafs. I would go for, what is it, 2015, 2016, when they upgraded the battery chemistry to what they call the Lizard pack.
Or Lizard, like yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I just swapped in my limo. I put a Lizard pack in it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I took the old original, I forget the name of it, the old crappy pack that had degraded because it lived in Las Vegas. And that's what we put inside of the limo and wired in parallel. It's really sketchy. Don't do this at home. And then I put the Lizard pack that I got on eBay for like $800 as the main pack in the vehicle, and it still has like 70 or 80% capacity.
Right. Yeah, definitely. If you need a no frills, EV used Nissan Leaf 2015, 2016, in that neighborhood, they're really cheap on I haven't looked at them in the last month or so, but they're one of the best deals out there, as far as probably maybe under 10.
I mean, I bought the whole limo working for $3.
Right. I mean, that's still an older, but it's also a limo.
Yeah, so it's
a Leaf and a half.
Yeah, it's worth so much more. And I think I bought my red 2012 Leaf for $3,500 or something like that. So don't spend more than like $4,000 on the first gen Leaf. Just find them
not
cheap.
on the first gen. No.
Yeah. The refresh ones that came in like 2019 or whatever, those are still holding pretty good money. I just skip all that. You don't need any of that nice stuff.
Right.
That's
the sweet spot between the refresh in 2019 and then the Lizard pack. That little couple of years in there. Yeah.
So that's that. That is the InsideEVs exclusive. Nissan's most affordable EV just got delayed indefinitely. Shout out to our friend Mac Hogan over at InsideEVs, a great group of friends over there. Honestly, doing stuff like this is why it's so cool to have actual journalists in the zone covering cars across the industry, because we get to find out about stories like this. And I really hope Nissan reconsiders and at least offers a lower cost, lower range, even more stripped out Leaf for most people who just need basic transportation at a reasonable cost. Thank you, Dom, for joining all the way from halfway around the world. And thank you guys for listening in. We'll see you on another episode again soon. Bye-bye.